19.
All right, and we will touch on that because I'm really interested in finding out how are we curbing these challenges of the coronavirus. But we'll touch on that in a bit.
Sure.
Let's talk about promoting film. Investing in film and how we are providing information to create and maintain our networks. But I'd like to start with finding out what are we currently doing when it comes to showcasing filming activities of companies from Kenya and the rest of the world.
Thank you. First of all, we must appreciate that, first of all, film is business.
Yes,
and
it is.
As film is business, we must follow the business structure from A to Z. We look at the product being produced, being put to the market, being communicated, being priced, and being consumed by the audiences. From where I sit, I'm looking at a situation where that I must enable the industry to produce quality content and put this quality content through the right platforms for consumption. So how do we ensure this? The Commission undertakes various programs on building capacity when it comes to quality content that is churned out of the market. We also create opportunities for the content producers to be able to see beyond where we are. Because when you're producing content, you produce it for a specific target market, because you can't produce a product for everyone.
Just general products,
yes,
no.
No, it's
you must be specific to what you want.
Exactly. In the film industry, it will be very difficult for you to sell if your product is really a general product. Yes, it may appeal to the general viewing, but which market are you appealing to? Is it children? Are you looking at the segment of adults only? Are you looking at the segment of, or which market are you really looking at in terms of region and so on? So we do county capacity building workshops. And when you talk about capacity building workshops, we focus on various segments within the industry. We have classified filmmakers into those who are joining the industry now, those who are mature producers and actors and so on. So we address their needs based on their
capacity, or their level of knowledge.
Exactly. Other than that, creating platforms for filmmakers to be able to open up the scope in terms of where they can sell their products. Remember, there are so many streams for really making revenue out of film products. It may be through VODs or streaming services. It will be through the mainstream TV, cinema theaters, and so on. So our focus here again is to ensure that we align our industries with the realities of the current situation in the country and across the globe. And what are the trends?
You've been able to, get all these producers, all these content creators, to put them in the different categories, and then to align themselves to bearing in mind that we have a vision and a target.
This is work in progress. I must admit that, as I said earlier, the film industry, just like any other industry, be it agriculture or so, we must be considered as a formal sector.
But now we are not being considered
at
as
the
such.
moment, we are semi-formal. The reason being, most of our filmmakers have not appreciated the position of being in a formal sector and being critical to the contribution of the national GDP.
But now the creative sector has been, is coming out as secondary to the mainstream.
I wouldn't really say that it's secondary because we are here because it has a meaning to the economy. And it can do even much more if all of us, the key stakeholders, appreciate that fact. And that's why today we are calling on everyone to sign up to the Kenya's Film Directory. Why is the Film Directory important? Today, I would like you to be able to get to our online system and access Producer X with all their details, or an actor or a director and so on. When that information is available, then the Commission and any other government entity can be able to openly classify or identify you with an activity as a filmmaker.
There is a track record that has been
exactly.
put there. That is online.
That is it.
On the website.
Yes.
Oh, you had mentioned about someone being able to identify their market. But now, what are the existing platforms that we have that are offering high-level interaction for trading and sharing of ideas?
Well, when you look at the market today, the digital platforms are open to everyone. The Commission has affiliated itself with various key entities across the globe. Remember, we are affiliated to the Association of Film Commissioners International, which is the only global body for film commissions, with a membership of over 400 film commissions. And I must also say that out of these 400 film commissions, in Africa, it's only Kenya that is affiliated to this particular body.
The KFC.
And the Kenya Film Commission, yes. And as a commissioner, I happen to be the only certified film commissioner in Africa affiliated to this particular institution. This association has provided Kenya Film Commission with an array of an opportunity, and these opportunities are ranging from global best practices reports to production funding proposals and every other aspect that one would want to. We connect to this global community through the AFCI portal, which gives us room to have a conversation. On a daily basis, I have a conversation with my fellow commissioners on what is happening and how we can be able to address the current challenges. So for the film industry, there are many opportunities that are available, both online, for training, for marketing, and also for the general networking. We provide this avenue to the industry through our communication tools.
So this is now using technology?
Using technology, yes.
But now, as you talk about technology, how can you use it now to support the content creators in this film industry?
Thank you. Today, as we speak, we have what we call ease of doing business. Remember, the Kenya Film Commission is under the Ministry of ICT, steered by C.S. Musheru. And the focus of this ministry is to enable businesses by use of technology. At the Commission, we have analyzed and identified that there is need to make it easy for film producers to access all services in government, be it at the national or county government, by way of introducing what we call an e-film shop. This is an equivalent of e-citizen platform that will enable filmmakers access services at one-stop point. We are currently developing this particular platform, and when it is launched, I believe this will give the film industry an ease of access.
So just to cut it short, you're saying someone can be able to get all the information through the e-film on the website. Are we talking about the film itself? Are we talking about information that pertains to the producers, the directors? What exactly are we looking into?
I mentioned two items here.
Yes.
There is the film industry directory, which will be online, and that is work in progress. I also talked about the e-film shop platform, which is meant to be a one-stop shop for anyone who wants to access government services from wherever they are. Remember, today when you want to film, you have to get permission from various agencies, especially if you want to use drone, you want to access locations in a county government jurisdiction.
There's a procedure to
yes, and there are various points that you have to undergo before you can be able to carry out this particular exercise. For us, our role, as I said, is to make Kenya competitive. If production in Kenya has a long bureaucratic process, then we will not be making Kenya competitive. And that's why we are coming up with an e-film shop supported by the Ministry of ICT.
Where everything can happen on that platform, making work easier.
It makes work easier. You want to, let's say, seek for a filming license. you go to the platform and you should be able to interact with whichever agency is offering that particular service without you having to walk into 20 different offices.
So through
that is the intention.
Through this, someone can be able even to keep, to stay in touch with the government.
Yes.
Yeah, because there is a connection.
Exactly.
Bridge that gap.
Yeah. Remember, world over, the role of government is service delivery. And service delivery in the easiest way possible. You provide an opportunity that you can be able to offer services at ease without having to create roadblocks. So by introducing an e-film shop, any roadblock that is imagined old real will be done away with.
Nice.
Yes.
And speaking of that, on film, how invested are we when it comes to the film industry? Are we investing as much as we should?
Thank you. Remember, this is an emerging industry in this particular region. In government, we have appreciated that this is a sector that will be able to turn around so many things. And when I talk about many things, I'm looking at a situation where the film sector is able to employ so many people. Anytime you have a film production on location, there are so many services that are offered. Transport, tourism, there is an element of hotel services, money transfers, and so on. So the importance of this particular industry cannot be understated. And that's why we have to put all measures in place to see to it that we provide an enabling environment for the business of film to thrive. And that is what the Ministry of ICT, led by CS Msheru, is championing this to see to it that we are able to achieve this within the shortest time.
Trying to bring the film industry to the forefront.
It's very critical. We are all committed to seeing this work because a thriving film industry will ensure that we've got opportunities for our young people to get employed. We've got income coming through, let's say through productions. We will have our citizenry in terms of audiences of the content that is produced by the locals being consumed and also influencing how we interact and live as a people. We should be able to promote our own culture through film, because film is a strong influence on how we live and do a lot of things around us.
We should buy Kenya,
exactly.
Promote Kenya, sell Kenya.
That is it. Film is the best form of marketing that you can ever have. If you produced a film today about, let's say, Mount Kenya or Dedan Kimathi, that film will be here for forever. And it will sell the country for the many years to come without you having to spend again. So mine is to encourage investors and all other potential participants within this particular industry to invest heavily into the sector. Why? It's a lucrative and important sector for all of us.
Now, you're talking about promoting film, investing in it. Now, I'm taking it back to find out, what about the policies that are there for film? What do you think about the current policies that have been put in place that pertain to the film industry?
Yes. In any operational environment, there has to be a policy framework that guides how you do business.
Yes.
And in this country, we have a film legal framework that is currently guiding how we operate as an industry.
Yeah.
But it's also worth noting that when we talk about policies, these are progressive.
The things that change with time.
Yes, they keep changing with the time because, especially in our sector, technology is revolving very fast. So many things are happening. So we have to also change with the time. And for that reason, this financial year, again championed by our CS Msheru, we've brought on board experts from Kenya Law Reform to relook at our film policy And
the financial year 2019-2020.
Yes,
okay.
We are currently, the experts are currently relooking at that particular policy, and the policy should be, when approved, should be able to really address what you are raising. But the key point here is we must, and we are alive to the fact that we have to be real and connected to the times.
And we will touch on that because in terms of funding, there is something that is going on so far, courtesy of the Kenya Film Commission. We'll touch on that also in a bit. But back to promoting film, promoting the film industry. You talked about policies being there, and that policies change with time. But now, these policies and the promoters of film need to promote what is having some sense of some certain kind of standard. When it comes to the standard that is there in Kenya, are we meeting the standards required that can enable someone to say, we need to promote this local market, we need to promote this local film industry?
Okay, you know, when you talk about a standard,
yes,
then we must ask ourselves, what is the measure? Yeah, we are measuring the Kenyan standard to which one?
To what?
Yes, but the most important is we are looking at how do we ensure that we raise the bar.
Are we setting our own standards?
We set standards, business standard of film, to a sense that if every Kenyan film producer knows that anytime they produce a film product, that product can traverse nations and can be accepted by the identified audiences, I think we'll be meeting the standards. And that's why our intention here is to ensure that we provide a critical environment in terms of what are the infrastructural facilities that will enable quality productions. What are the soft skills that are required? What are the enabling legal instruments that will enable the production of this particular content? How do we structure the financial channels that the filmmakers are able to access funding to produce the kind of content that will be acceptable and that will be able to give returns at the end? So the element of standard, for me, I'm looking at it in various aspects.
It has different angles.
Yes, it has different angles. But when it comes to the accreditation and standardization of who is a filmmaker and who is what, when you look at our mandate, we've got the element of certifying filmmakers. And that will, or is helping us bring all filmmakers or associations to a space where, through their own internal mechanisms, associations are able to strengthen how they operate, while the Commission is able to support these associations to get stronger. Because as a practitioner in the industry, I want to be very confident that I belong to Association A. Why do I want to belong? Because I gain X benefits. And that's why I encourage all association officials in Kenya to focus on the benefits to their association members. Because by doing that, then we'll be helping also government in strengthening and structuring how the industry works.
But then how are these associations faring on so far, even when it comes to the form of organization?
Yes, currently the film associations, some are struggling because of various factors, and that's why we at the Commission, we've made it a resolve that we need to support these associations to be strong. How do we support them? We support by way of training. We bring about best practices from other jurisdictions, and also just reinventing the governance structures within these associations. Because an association is a grouping of people, and all these members can only be happy to belong if they are getting benefits from these connections.
So these filmmakers, the producers, you know, they need to get certified. They need to be affiliated to the associations that are there in the country. It benefits them.
Yes, all we are trying to say is that today, if you came let's say you came to Kenya for the first time, and you want to know who is a filmmaker in the country. How many do we have? Where are they? In county X and B, do we have a producer?
How do we pick them out?
Yes, and where are they and what are they doing? What are the skill sets? We need all this information. And as I said earlier, the element of bringing this particular industry into 100% formal is critical. And when I talk about 100% formal, I'm talking about having businesses within the film industry that are connected to the general government system. For example, how many film businesses are connected to KRA? How many film businesses are running throughout the financial year connected to the government parameters? That is very critical.
Now, what is the current the status of the film industry? I'm looking at the pandemic. We are in a time where we have the COVID-19 pandemic. But now, in my view, there is opportunity here.
Yes.
Because people are home. And the film industry can thrive at this time because people are told to stay at home. But during this time, we need to air more local content. How is the input from our own local content creators?
Yes, I will speak on behalf of the Commission.
Yes.
And what we are doing. Our assessment as far as the effect of COVID-19 to the sector, and also what we are doing to bridge the gap.
Yes.
I know with the COVID-19, it has really changed the way we do business. Remember, even in offices, the social distancing component has emerged. We have to wear masks. We have to stay at home, and so much more. That applies to the film industry. Remember, anytime you are in a production, film production involves people, and it involves gatherings, which means most of our productions have been suspended.
So the input right now has gone down?
Really, almost to a large extent it has, because most projects have been either cancelled or suspended. About 3 weeks ago, we ran a survey to just ascertain the level of impact COVID has really led to within our film industry. And the findings are very clear as we are discussing. Many projects have been either suspended or cancelled completely. Remember, most of film practitioners are not employed on permanent basis, which means they have got zero income as we speak.
Because they have to work for them to get an income.
That is it. In addition to that, remember, there are service providers within the industry. There are those whose work is purely to rely on jobs that are coming into the country from other jurisdictions. Today, the projects have been cancelled, so there is really nothing much they can be able to do. So for us at the Kenya Film Commission, we have made it deliberate and championed by our CS. There is a program that will be launched shortly to intervene the film industry's well-being.
So there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Definitely. And of course, before the ministry gives that guidance, at our own level, we have already also put measures in place that will be able to help the industry. We are providing film-related information constantly as far as COVID-19 is concerned. We are also working with like-minded partners to develop short messaging that are towards connecting and just creating awareness of the film industry effects in this particular area. Remember, we have My Kenya, My Story, mobile film competition. We have brought it at this time because we are aware people are at home.
What is that all about, the My Kenya, My Story?
It's an interesting program that we run, and this is we do this every year. It's a mobile film competition where everyone at home is given room to use their mobile gadget to tell a story. 3 to 5 minutes, And this time around, we're asking Kenyans to tell a story about COVID-19, about the environment in your household. What is going on? You may be able to come up with a story and just tell the public how you are social distancing and everything else around COVID-19 within your household. These are stories that are aimed at helping us understand the magnitude of COVID-19 while promoting the government guidelines that have been set to help everyone secure and also to reduce any tension in terms of burden to our health systems. So the Commission is promoting the government guidelines towards COVID-19 through this particular program. The program, the lines are now open and submissions will go all the way to the 3rd of June. Okay. And the winner will be able to get 200,000 shillings. Wow. The second runners-up will get 150, while the third will be able to get 100,000 shillings.
Prizes up for grabs.
Yes.
As we bring this discussion to a close, what are you doing so far in the plans that are there to provide sustainable financial support towards all these causes, the plans and the goals that you've set?
Yes, we have quite a number of programs that we have put in place to see to it that post-COVID, we would like to see continuity of the film industry. Yeah. So we have actually come up with a stimulus package where we've set aside some financial support to the industry, and the call is already out. We're asking filmmakers or producers to apply for funding so that we are able to run a few projects post-COVID. Why? What is the intention of this particular program? The intention is very simple. Post-COVID, when we have 10 projects running, each project employing at least 100 people or 200 people, then we'll be able to have a sustainable flow of work and income to most of our key filmmakers. So
funding will be there, everything will be there.
Who are currently at home and not achieving anything. And also remember, the other aspect that we have focused on is the establishment of an audiovisual CMO. Recently, the head of state announced the restructuring of royalty disbursement through a centralized system. And that, for me, it's important that even our filmmakers have to be beneficiaries. And the only way for the filmmakers to be beneficiaries is to have the audiovisual CMO in place, which is work in progress. Shortly, we will be doing digital stakeholder validation so that Kenya Copyright Board can be able to accredit or license a CMO that will address the producers. The third is we are working with one of the key banking institution in Kenya to establish a funding mechanism for the sector. Because of COVID, the plans went a little bit down, but our take is that COVID-19 has come with various opportunities that we need to harness in terms of how do we distribute our content, how do we ensure that we are able to monetize film content without having to wait for the traditional ways of the audiences accessing our content and being able to earn.
So when the audience accesses content, the filmmakers also
should be able to get their income. So new ways of monetizing their content. And also, because of this fund that we have established, we are asking well-wishers, institutions, to chip into this empowerment fund so that we are able to have continuity of this particular program, because our intention is professionalize the industry while at the same time create room for filmmakers to produce content or tell stories that create jobs, stories that bring income to the pockets of filmmakers.
But we need archiving of these materials.
Yes, that's a good point, and thank you for mentioning archiving. When you look at the Kenya Film Commission mandate, we have a role of, or we act as a repository. So Kenya Film Commission is currently working with one of the international media houses in Kenya to set up the right infrastructure that will enable a repository 100% done, which means anytime you want to access film materials in the country,
Yes.
the Commission is putting a mechanism to help us collect, store, and access. So those three components are being addressed. Why collect? We need to collect all content available in the country, store it in the right format, and make it available to the general public.
All right. Thank you very much. That is the Kenya Film Commission CEO, Timothy Owase. Thank you very much for finding time to join me, and I wish you the best even as you continue with implementing all these plans.
Thank you for hosting me.
All right. Remember, we are live on Facebook, on Twitter. We are live on our website, www.kbc.co.ke. Moving on, I'm also joined live by the United Nations Habitat Executive Director, Maimuna Sharif. Thank you very much, Maimuna, for joining me this morning. We are at a time where we have the pandemic. It has plunged the world's economy into a global recession. So far, what is the UN Habitat's focus?
Thank you very much, Ram, for this morning, and Khabaria Asubuhi,
Zuri sana.
and Ramadan Kareem for those who are fasting today. A very good morning. Our main focus is on the 1 billion people worldwide who live in the informal settlement and slum. And in Africa, this amount to around 200 million, or half of those living in urban areas. So these are the most vulnerable who generally need our support. So as you know, there have been some cases on COVID-19 confirmed in Kibera, Dendora, and Kawangware. So we need to be very vigilant, and let me take this opportunity to acknowledge the hard work of the Kenyan government, civil society and community organization, particularly women and youth group, as they are providing much needed basic services. I also would like to particularly want to mention the policy Kenya Water and Sanitation Ministry to ensure people water for hand washing, which is so essential to prevent the spread of COVID-19. In particularly, they are also providing free water to vulnerable group for 3 months, and not carrying out disconnection and prioritizing areas that needs intervention. These are very excellent measures. And also, I would like to congratulate the government for establishing the coordinate COVID-19 response in informal settlement, chaired by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, to coordinate actors intervening in informal settlement. So this is a major step that will draw attention to this group, which is particularly vulnerable. So we have even more vigilant now, that I am happy to report that the group that we are working with have been helping us to ensure that the most vulnerable residents have access to hand washing facilities and get life-saving information about COVID-19. So, but let us not forget, another thing is the financial challenges of this community. Then we are facing living in slum, rely on the daily informal work, and with the lockdown, lack of transport, and also the closure of business, market, and other places, and they cannot make a daily wage. So these are the things that we are focusing now. Ryan, over to you.
All right, and so far, thank you very much for that, all these plans that you have. But when it comes to the policies and the measures to mitigate, what policies do we have so far, the measures that are there to mitigate the local, social and economic impact of this virus?
Yeah, we have this 19. You can see that UN Habitat recently launched the UN Habitat COVID-19 response plan, and this is we are focusing, as I said, on the sustainable development of cities, towns, and communities. And we know that the huge number of cities affected now, nearly 1,500 at the moment cities are affected, and 90%, 95% of all COVID-19 cases are in urban areas. So, and we know that particularly we have to act quickly, particularly in the slum and poor areas. So for us in UN Habitat, we already launched the plan last Thursday to work with 64 countries across the world, including 20 in Africa, and to carry out work in 2020, we need around 72 million. And for the immediate action, we already allocate our own funding, and of course it's the member state funding of UN Habitat, 1.3 million and 13 projects immediately in over 13 projects globally, including and more of those be treated and to improve their water and sanitation. This is very important when you ask about washing hands. So if there is no water, how to wash the hands? So it's water and sanitation, is setting up hand washing facilities. And we also raise awareness about COVID-19 because there are a lot of misinformation and the lack of trust in what people are hearing. And we also use our expertise to help government to make key decisions about which area to prioritize and how to react by collecting data and mapping the hotspots. And we also using the looking for the innovative way to help those hit in the hardest and the economic impact. Let me give you some example. In Kenya, UN Habitat was selected to provide technical input to the technical committee of the coordinating mechanism of COVID-19 response in former settlement, chaired by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, established by the government to coordinate actors working in the informal settlement. And we have years of experience, yes. These are the things that we are looking for, right? Over to you.
Yes. The UN Habitat launched an urgent COVID-19 response plan for different countries. You're focusing on different immediate action in poorly and densely populated areas. Maybe you can be able to give us just a brief plan or a brief overview of what this plan entails and how is it going so far, the COVID-19 response plan.
Yeah, this plan is about the our work, especially in the most vulnerable areas. Because let me give you a certain data first before I discuss about the plan. As I mentioned just now, nearly 1,500 cities in 210 countries affected by COVID-19. 9% of the total cases in urban area. 1 billion people live in informal settlement, slum, in overcrowded and inadequate housing. 2.4 billion people lack of adequate access to safe water and sanitation. And we need 72 million needed by UN Habitat to help meet the urgent needs of these cities. And we are looking into three areas, three response areas. One is to involve with the community to look for the innovative driven solution. Second is look into the urban data, because a lot of data are missing for the decision maker to make a decision, and mapping and knowledge. And the third, of course, is looking into the mitigation economic impact and initiate the recovery. So we globally, we are looking into 20 countries in Africa, in Arab State, 11 countries, Asia Pacific, 70 countries, Latin America, 16 countries, and the total is around 72 million for the to put more facilities, immediate facilities for to tackle and also to prevent the COVID-19. Over to you, Brad.
And with this continuing spread of this coronavirus, I would like maybe to find out from you. We have different cities, some vulnerable, some poor, all over the world. It has affected communities, particularly the 1 billion people living in slums and informal settlements, including refugees, internally displaced persons, and migrants. Now, what are you doing to address the crisis, and to help cushion these affected people that are over 1 billion?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. This is very pertinent question that I would like to give some example here. Our work, our main area, how we can trying to flatten the curve of the COVID-19. Let me look at maybe is in our work in Africa. We are supporting 20 countries in Africa: Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, and South Sudan. And we are looking into the emergency response to the outbreak in the informal settlement and crowded marketplaces. UN Habitat, among others, is also in area of awareness raising, access to water and sanitation, and hygiene facilities. We are looking at waste management, mobility, and connectivity, and how we can sustain the basics income. Look at the alternative energy, data and information management, and policy and strategy advice, and see how we can look into the social cohesion. So this is the one of the area that we would like to help. At the same time, we are also working very closely with the communities and also with the youth in the countries that I'm mentioning just now. Mm-hmm. And one of the areas that we can see is just very near to our place is the work in Kenya in fighting the COVID-19. We work very, very closely with the youth and the women in Kibera and Matare in giving the facilities hand washing station. And Habitat has established 10 washing hand station as well as this is well attended by the communities. And we are supporting youth group. At the same time, we also working with the private sector. We managed to get, I would like to say thank you to Chandaria Foundation. We managed to get another 20 stations in the e-commerce station. And I was informed, Ram, that is already over 135,000 hand washers at the facility so far. And we would like, what we want to do is in a response plan, we would like to collaborate with the member state, would like to collaborate with the private sector, with the philanthropies, with the organization to scale up these facilities in the informal settlement in Mombasa, Nyeri, Kisumu, Nairobi City, Mandera, and Nakuru. Well, now, I also would like to say thank you to the Canadian and Norwegian government. They have established 28 stations in the two informal and with another more 15 planned, I was told. So this is a few areas that we are the quick win that we would like to do, and this is very, very important. Over to you, Ray.
Yeah, you've mentioned different governments there, but now it brings me to find out, how are you working through to mobilize support amongst the different national, city, and local governments and community leaders?
I would like to call upon our partners. That's the reason why first thing we started with the 13 project and with 1.3 million that we just immediately, we already launched it immediately after the COVID-19. And then we plan and we launch our COVID-19 response plan. In the COVID-19 response plan, you can download from our website. We put down what we want to do, and I will also take this opportunity, Ram, to call upon our partners. And apart from we have the consultation bilateral with them, we also have also online webinar calling for the partners to work with us. I'm also using this platform. Thank you very much, KBC, to get the partners to work together with us. Let us collaborate and unite and increase our solidarity in fighting this challenging time of COVID-19. Mm-hmm.
And so far, the UN Habitat, you have over 40 years of urban experience, and much of it is in humanitarian situations. But now, how are you working with just still to dwell on this? to dwell deep on that, how are you working with the partners now who are on the ground to urgently deliver the 72 million US dollars for the response plan in Africa, the Arab states, Asia Pacific, Latin America, and the Caribbean?
Yeah, there are two methodology or two strategy. One is we are working very close with our United Nations country team. We are working very close with UNCT here, with the resident coordinator in Kenya, for example. And we're also working with the resident coordinator in other countries that you mentioned just now, in Arab state, in Asia Pacific, Latin America, together with that. And we are also work through this UNCT or United Nations country team. We work together and we with other UN agencies in delivering this program. Even our program with 1.3 million project or the 13 project, we also partner with UNCT. And second is we partner with other philanthropies. For example, like immediately after we launched this COVID-19 response team, we have already had yesterday we announced that the Al Walid Foundation from Saudi, they're already willing to fund 2 million of our program in Arab state. So now we are calling for the partners to work together with us. And we have a very clear step and very clear methodology and very clear program. All these 72 million, if we can get it, we have a very clear program of what we want to do. And also with the indicators and impact on the ground so that we can see what are the impact of our program and we can also scale up and also asking other partners to work together with us. Over to you, Ram.
All right, and you are working with 20 countries, and this is in Africa. What are the priorities that were made in narrowing down to these 20 countries in Africa?
We are working in the 20 countries. If I can list it to you, that we are working with Angola, Burkina Faso, Cabo Verde, Cameroon, DR Congo, Ethiopia, Gambia, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Kenya, Mozambique, Nigeria, Sao Tome and Principe, Somalia, South Africa, South Sudan, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So these are the 20 countries that we will work together with the government, with the mayors, and also with the communities. If we can get the funding that we are launched the appeal on last Thursday. So these are the areas that we are putting up for especially to work in the informal settlement and the crowded marketplaces and the most trying to look to help the most vulnerable people within these countries.
But now in these countries, because Africa has 54 countries, how are you able to narrow down to the 20, considering that some countries are different from the rest? What were the priorities that were given when it comes to coming up with the 20, especially also looking at the effect of this COVID-19? How was it working through to get to that?
Okay, these countries that we chose is one criteria is that we already have the country present, UN Habitat country present in this country. That's one criteria. Second is we already have started our program, existing program in this country. So we are not starting from scratch. So we are already have the collaboration and engagement with the cities and with the government of these countries. And then also looking into the vulnerability in terms of the people in the informal settlement and also the informal sectors of this area. So these are we have the criteria when we choose the 20 countries that we would like to work with. So this is more on the demand driven. We have the communities, especially in the informal settlement and local government, have come to us and requested support. And national government also asked our support, especially in the urban poor in informal settlement. As we know, this is where the virus is most likely to spread uncontrollably. So even we already have 4 projects in Africa at the moment with our own funding in Kenya, Ghana, Mozambique, and Guinea. So there are a few factors that we chose these 20 countries. Right, over to you.
Now, let me narrow it down to some specifics. We have over 95% of the world's coronavirus cases being experienced in urban areas, with nearly over 1,500 cities affected. What are the possible measures that can be put in place to slow down the transmission, such as, we have physical distancing, self-quarantine, hand washing, and community-wide lockdown? What other measures what are the measures that we have so far that people need to implement to reduce the rate of transmission?
The response to the COVID-19 at the national and city level might suit the local context. For example, informal settlements are diverse, local living conditions and people needs are different. So physical distancing is difficult to practice for the highly populated neighborhood like slum, where people interact as part of economic. But more practically, there is no adequate space in the houses and streets are narrow. So the clear way I think that's ahead is to work through the communities. And UN Habitat has excellent network within the communities who have the best information and innovative ideas about what can work and how to get the message across. So we have seen impressive creativity with innovative approaches made to make face masks, hand washing stations that are inexpensive, and these communities taking messages door to door. So we need to listen first, then we act, because there is no one should fit all. It depends on the localities and the values, the culture of the various cities and various communities. Over to you.
Now, Madam Maimuna, I would like to quote what you said. You said this, and I quote, "With our extensive network of partners as well as our in-house experts, UN Habitat is working closely with the cities and communities to find innovative and targeted solutions to provide water and sanitation and safe transport to mitigate the economic impact of the urban poor." End of quote. That is what you said. But now, being that you've done this in the communities, what is the response from these communities on the ground?
Oh, Ram, the response is I told you earlier when you host me, I'm on the WhatsApp group of many youth and many groups. They want more. Please, Edie, can you escalate? Can you scale up the facilities that you have now? How can we work? There are both ways. I have a youth from Nakuru, from Nyeri, from Mombasa, who told me that we can do this cheaper. This is also increase the innovation of the youth. So their response is very, very good, and they would like us to give them more and empower them, because they know what is needed in that area. They know where to put for example, the hand washing station. They know how to manage them. Then I also ask them to collect the data, so that in future we can also do the analysis. We are not only talking about during COVID, Ram. We are also now I'm putting out one task force in my organization to look into post-COVID. What happened after this? How can we is it business like normal? Because now it's new normal. I used to be in your country doing this interview, but now I'm at home. So I think this task force will be looking at the data that we gather from the work on the field. So my answer is that they appreciate it and they want more. And I also would like to appeal today that please collaborate with us, all the member states out there, the partners out there, the business group, and also the philanthropists out there together with us, so that we can strengthen up, we can scale up our activities and our facilities on the ground. Over to you, Red.
Thank you very much. That's all the time we had. Thank you very much for finding time to join me this morning and airing your opinion on mitigating COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Aram, and asante sana. Thank you.
Asante sana, barikiwe kabisa. That is UN Habitat's Executive Director, Maimuna Mod Sharif, coming to us live. Remember, it was about mitigating the COVID-19 effects. She has given different highlights. Remember, you should be part of this conversation. The hashtag, as always, is Good Morning Kenya. We are live on Facebook. Keep your comments coming in. Tag me at Ramaguko, at Dorina Range, and at Jane Mambui. Meanwhile, we're taking a short break. We'll be back in a bit. Keep it Good Morning Kenya.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners. Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands, or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
Many thanks for staying with us. Good morning, Kenya continues, and we continue the discussions around coronavirus pandemic, and we want to talk about the coronavirus take home. So basically, these are the lessons that we are learning as individuals, as country, as well as the globe in regards to matters to do with coronavirus, and some of the lessons we can take home even post-COVID-19. To help us with this discussion this morning is Amos Wangela, who is a life coach, a researcher, a writer, and especially on matters to do with social hygiene. And also the lady next to him is Braxidis Ongola, who is also a life coach and doubles up as a critical thinker as well as an educator. So thank you very much, lady and gentlemen, for making time this morning.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we begin with the basics. The aspect of basic hygiene. It is one thing that we have been taught since when we were toddlers from kindergarten, that you should wash your hands, wash your fruits before you eat them. But during this pandemic, it has become more of like a norm. Do you think that even as we continue this pandemic, as we continue recording numbers, and even post-coronavirus pandemic, that the thing about basic hygiene would be one principle that we would have learned as people, as nations, as countries? Beginning with you, Braxidis, what is your take?
The virus just came in to remind us of the basic hygiene principles that we've been taught. It's just instilling that value back to us. And I suppose it's something that will be continuing now that we'd have done it for some time, would have gotten used to it. It's something that we should be picking up even after the coronavirus.
All right. What about you, Amos? Do you think that this will be a lesson that we'll continue practicing even post-coronavirus in as much as we are learning it right now?
I want to be very careful not to say there will be a post-corona. I just want to say things could change for the better, but corona isn't going anywhere really. Corona is going to be with us, just like malaria has been with us for many days.
Okay.
So my take is we will still wash our hands, maybe not as much as we do right now, but we will still wash our hands. We will still maintain hygiene as we are doing now. Maybe not as intense, but we'll still do that. Yeah.
All right. Now, coming to you, Braxidis, even from an educator's point of view, in terms of the digital access, is it a time that we need to start focusing on ensuring that this becomes, it is something necessary as of now, because a lot of things have moved online. When you talk about education, when you talk about jobs, works, people are now working online, and especially even when it comes to the education sector. Do we need to now start considering the digital platforms, the digital access, something that every Kenyan, now coming back to Kenyan, every Kenyan can have access to digital platforms, especially for matters to do with education?
My taking is that our education system needed some form of disruption for us to do things in a different way. We've been hoping to have the education system digitalized where we are able to learn online, but it has been taking a while. If you remember, one of the president's agenda was to transform and have the digital education system. That did not happen. So coronavirus is just here to kick and also remind us further that we need this thing. And I like that now we are even practicing it and we see it work, and that is a plus. Because now the speculation around it that it might not work, it's no longer there. And you're also seeing the value add of this. The parents are benefiting as we are looking at the time difference and also the economic aspect of it. Initially, the time spent going to school the money for fare and the financial aspect of it is now reduced, and the education is brought to your door. A parent can actually ascertain what is the kid learning at a particular time, what is the kid consuming, and is the teacher very effective in educating the kid through the online platform. So my take is that the education system, as it is currently, has already been disrupted, and you're already seeing a new wave, and this is the route that the education is taking. So the earlier we embrace the online and the digital setup of the education, the better.
All right, Amos Braxidis is saying that the earlier we embrace that, the better. But we are alive to the fact that not every Kenyan or every Kenyan student might have access to these platforms. Like I mentioned, it is a place where we are all moving to. So even as you're learning so many lessons during this pandemic time, what is the one thing that probably the government or different stakeholders can do to ensure that this digital access actually becomes accessible to every Kenyan, regardless of status in the society?
It is expected that there will be quite a struggle in transitioning from the norm and traditional to digital. But what I would expect from especially the government is to make it possible for every Kenyan, irrespective of where they are, the economic status, to be able to access this education. Now, we will expect stakeholders to jump in very quickly to make it cheaper and affordable for every Kenyan. So we expect the prices of the digital technologies, for example, mobile phone, iPads, we expect them to reduce in prices greatly to make it possible for everybody else to access. Plus, the way we deal with our teachers, it will be important but that we train our teachers a bit differently because they're used to the normal traditional classroom environment. We are moving to where they will need to be speaking to screens and students also learning from the screens. Therefore, it will be important for us to channel more energies in ensuring that our teachers are well equipped, well prepared, and vast when it comes to passing information using the digital platforms. So basically, it's for everybody. It's for parents to save more for the digital. I mean, unnecessary spending on other issues will have to be put aside, so that we spend specifically for the benefit of our children, the same to governments.
All right, let's talk about the issue of crisis management. I mean, this pandemic has sort of rendered everyone into a crisis. But in terms of crisis management as a country, do you feel like we are there yet? Are we learning something new in terms of managing crisis? Because we know that there are so many crises. It could be like health crisis, like what is happening right now. There could be war crisis, refugee crisis. There are so many crises that happens in countries, different countries. But when you talk about crisis management and what you're learning, I mean, Amos, do you think that we are there yet, even in terms of managing future crises? Are we learning anything new? And if we are, probably what are we learning in terms of crisis management?
We are not there yet, but of course we are learning a lot of things. Number one, that it's important to be prepared, to be calm, because we cannot not always foresee what is going to happen. We cannot always be ready for everything that's going to happen. But the most important thing is we need to learn to be very calm in the face of a crisis. Then we can think straight. The moment you're not calm and there's so much happening to you, then you're unable to remain calm and therefore prepare and plan and make things work. So number one, we will need continuously learn that we need to be very calm in the face of crisis. We are not very prepared, but we are learning by day, and therefore in future, we will expect that every stakeholder will take part in making sure future crises are handled better. I mean, the most important thing we are learning from all these things is, number one, everybody has a role to play. And if that said, therefore, is everybody will therefore have to prepare from where they're coming, know what your value add is in the system in making sure that the economy runs usually, our social status are in good shape, and therefore, when we have a crisis, we can handle it even much better.
All right, so we are not there yet, but we are in a learning process because it's a learning curve. Braxidis, do you agree with that in terms of crisis management, that yes, we are in a learning curve, and probably what more can we learn in terms of handling crisis better?
I think the most important thing that we need to remember is, as much as we always have a plan laid out that things will turn like this, at some point there is a disruption and it will never always go the way we want it to go. So at that point, always anticipate that things might change at some point, and if they change, don't go to panic mode. As he says, stay calm for you to be able to weigh now what's the next step, what would be the course of action in this crisis, what's the best thing to do. Because we always find some people benefiting out of the crisis when others are confused is when they thrive. So how do they achieve this? And this can be achieved by what we are saying, just calm down, relax, don't be worried and anxious about the scenarios and whatever is happening. Then you can be able to sift through and see how are you going to survive under this crisis and the turbulence around it.
All right. Now, coming to the aspect of health workers, we know that they have been the ones on the front line in helping us fight this pandemic, just ensuring that people are well taken care of. But even coming back to the country, since when this pandemic, since when the first case was announced, a number of health workers have been complaining that they don't have proper training. Some have been saying that their salaries have been delayed. They're not getting their allowances as how they would want to. So probably now coming to the aspect of leadership and governance, Amos, in terms of ensuring that we treat such kind of persons well, especially the health workers, in regards to them getting proper trainings, in regards to their salaries being paid on time, what are some of the lessons that governments can draw in how in learning how best they can treat such kind of personnel?
It's very important that, number one, we as leaders, we learn to be genuine and very honest with our people and take them very seriously whenever they stand up to speak. Nobody would wake up in the morning to just share things that they don't believe in that are not true. Okay. So we've been taking our health workers casually. We haven't been taking it seriously. And therefore, it is the part of the government and the leadership, therefore, to take them more seriously going forward. And in being genuine, when we go out campaigning and asking people to vote for us, we need to have that true patriotism in us, that we will not get to office only to misuse funds and for our own gain, that instead we will be very genuine and very humane to make sure that the lives of every Kenyan, remember, every life counts, and therefore, when we put measures in place, let's make sure we are doing everything right. It is almost an insult to expect a health practitioner to perform at their optimum when you're not making the conditions favorable for them to do so. Mm-hmm. And so I urge leaders, I urge everybody who is a stakeholder to take everybody's. And it's not just in the health sector. Okay. It's in all the sectors. That please, when somebody airs an issue, we need to find an easier and a better way of handling the same in good time.
All right, now I was reading an article and there was a statement there that was saying that human health and the health of the planet go together. So in essence, this pandemic is more of a wake-up call for us as humans to learn how to protect our environment, take care of our environment, do away with all kinds of pollution, talk about the water pollution, the air pollution, soil pollution, and all sorts of pollution. Braxidis, do you think that human health and the health of the planet go together? And is this pandemic teaching us how to better take care of our environment?
Actually, I was just joking the other day that God has found a way of just putting everything at standstill. No vehicles moving so that we have better environment. We are not going out, so there is no much disruption. No one is going to the forest, so at least it's cool and the nature can regain its original form. But as you say, I totally agree. It's a high time we also look at the surroundings around a human being. We don't live in a vacuum. We live in this environment and the nature at large. There are other ecosystems and organisms that also depend on all these things. So for us, we are called upon to take care of this environment. So it's our sole responsibility that we take care of the environment. As much as we have all the technology and everything coming up, at the back of our minds, we should be able to think and consider what would be its impact on the environment. And as we assess vis-a-vis the benefits and the disadvantages, so to speak, then if they outweigh the disadvantages, and if we find that our environment is not going to be affected vastly, then we can opt for it. Unlike the scenario that has been previously, that we are more keen on what are we going to benefit from this technology, to benefit from this new thing that is coming up, at the disadvantage of the environment. So it's a time that we just, that Corona has knocked and it's reminding us that our environment is very key and we ought to take care of it.
All right. It is a time that coronavirus has reminded us that the environment is very key. But Amos, do you agree with the statement that human health and the health of the planet go together? And also from your perspective, what better way can we take care of our environment, even moving forward?
It is indeed true that the human wellness greatly affects the wellness of the environment at large.
Okay.
Now, if you are not mentally stable, how do you expect to even take care of the environment? You need to be sane, you need to be in a proper state of mind to take care of even the people around you. What I'm saying simply is, every decision you make has to be very deliberate. How you relate to the things around you, the forest, the animals, has to be very deliberate. And that calls for a clear state of mind. Now, going forward, what is most likely going to happen is we have seen that everything is working, even while working from home. There could be a few hitches, of course, as known for change, synonymous to change. Things are not working optimally. But the truth is, we do not need all these cars every single day on the roads. We do not need all these kind of technologies that pollute the environment doing what they do best, and therefore making our environment worse. We have seen it work, and therefore we may want to embrace working from home, for example, as a way of reducing pollution by vehicles. We will need to think more deeply about that.
All right. Now, coming back to the aspect of leadership, Amos, in terms of governance and leadership, we have seen at least countries that have had, if I can say, good leaders, functioning governance systems, have known how best to deal with this pandemic. What is this pandemic teaching us in terms of leadership, functioning leadership, and good governance and systems in countries?
We have made very many mistakes in the past of not being keen on the way we put people into power and give them positions. We have seen in other governments, for example, in the US, we've seen people, the governments taking better care of the old, those who are more vulnerable to the disease. They're giving them something to sustain them because, one, they're not able to go to work, they're not able to produce, and they are more susceptible to the consequences of corona. And so they're taking care of them because they had a fund aside to take care of that. In Kenya, on the contrary, we did not plan, we had no such plans in place. Instead of having a fund aside to take care of such vulnerable groups, what we've been doing is stocking money to ourselves, making sure that we grow our own empires as though that would add value. The truth is, we are going to leave all these things here on earth. We really don't need them. And therefore, when you go to power, and good governance requires that, number one, you be very sober. You know that you are handling human beings. And so every strategy you put in place should help you, especially in terms of crisis, to handle the issues better. So going forward, I will urge everyone, if you want to go for office, re-evaluate yourself. Think about the qualities we always mention of good leadership. Understand the situations around you. Our environment is so different from the environments around the globe. So we cannot always borrow the strategies that are used abroad in our own setting. So we will need to find mechanisms that are tailor-made for our people, mechanisms that are tailor-made for our own population so that we survive and we grow. Very important.
Find mechanisms that are tailor-made for our people. So basically what you're saying is that we should not be so prone to copying what other people are doing, and especially the West.
Yes.
All right. Now, Brexit is coming back to you in terms of the aspects of leadership and proper governance. Let me just speak your mind on what you think about proper governance and proper leadership, and basically what you are learning in regards to this aspect of leadership and governance during this time.
My take is that our leaders should always be ready and prepare in advance, because we elect them so that they can have a vision for us. They should be able to envision a scenario where we can have a health crisis and then have the strategies of, in case we are there, so what happens? So we expect our leaders to even improve each and every area, not the health sector alone, in readiness for any eventuality that might occur. As he says, our leaders should be very key. Our leaders should consider keenly on every time improving our processes so that they can at least be able to tackle the challenges that the world brings as we go on.
All right. Also, more of what you're getting right now is that prevention is better than cure, and that is why we are being advised to wear a face mask anytime you are in public. Ensure that you wash your hands, sanitize if you cannot wash your hands. So basically what you're being taught, or basically what you're learning right now, is that prevention is better than cure. But let's talk about the aspect of those that do not listen. We know that for a fact. There are some that just say, whatever they're telling us, kuosha mkono kila saa kusanitize, ni kitu nimezoea kufanya. So what is the whole point of it? There are some that are taking these messages just like whatever, by the way. So what exactly would be your message to these people that are taking the prevention is better than cure kind of message, that as if it doesn't matter? They don't they don't take it into consideration just as we are being told. What would you say to such kind of persons that are not taking it?
There's a price to pay for every level of ignorance.
Okay.
There is a price to pay for carelessness. So guys, I see people, even after seeing what is happening to other economies, we are very lucky that we haven't gotten there yet. Look at Italy, look at Spain, things are terrible. We cannot continue to have cases of people going and locking themselves in bars and drinking and being careless and exposing themselves to the consequences. Carelessness has a cost, ignorance has a cost. How I pray that it will sink in your mind that this thing is killing people. And sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense when we talk of people dying and there are only 14 people, until it knocks on your door. If it is your mother who is passed on, if it's your son, if it's your child, then you'll get the sense. Please don't wait until it gets there. Just take the precautionary measures. Once again, prevention is better than cure.
So prevention is better than cure, yes, and that message, you are hearing it oftenly now. But Braxidis, what will be your message to those that are still ignorant, to those that are still saying, I don't see the need of actually wearing face masks all the time, in as much as we are being told to do that. I don't see the need of washing my hands all the time. I don't see the need of sanitizing all the time. Yes, they're telling us, but I just don't see the need of doing this all the time.
What we need to understand is that whatever is there is very serious. Okay. And we've seen people die. So as an individual, you need to interrogate yourself and just contemplate, in case I contract this virus, then what happens? Look at your responsibility if you're a parent, all those who are depending on you. If you're a child, your parents are also looking up to you. So in case you get this virus, well, you may not die, but at that period that you'll be fighting it and your body controlling it, how many people will be losing out? How will you be losing out as an individual? Look at it more closely as to you. How are you going to lose in the event that you contract the virus? Because people are looking at it as a distanced thing. Someone else might get it, but I cannot get it. In the event that you get it, what will you be losing at the long run? And this will tickle your mind to remind you that you need to stay safe. If you look at what you're going to lose more than what you're going to get in this, then you will be able to stay safe, be keen, and comply with all these health regulations that you're being given.
All right, so Braxid is just still sticking with you on the same issue of prevention is better than cure. And yes, you're talking about it, more oftenly. But do you feel like enough civic education has been done, especially in the informal setups, in the rural setups, for people to understand the importance of taking these messages as how they are related to them?
Yes, the government has tried in educating everyone in every sector. I'm more keen in the Mathare area, where people know actually there is corona. They know why they need to put on the face mask. But the challenge is, as you had initially pointed out, they don't believe why they should do it. As much as they've been educated on it, they're not buying it. Because some even argue that this thing is not true. It actually does not exist in Kenya. It doesn't, a black person cannot contract coronavirus. We are hearing all these sorts of arguments. So the question becomes, how do we get these people to shift their mind and just get the seriousness of the virus?
All right, so that's
as far as the civic education is concerned, the government has done its duty.
All right, so again, also that brings the whole aspect of misinformation. But let's go now to another issue. I mean, Amos, when you look at how the economy has been going, people have been losing jobs. Some have had to part with the half salaries. Some have had to go with no salaries at all. But what lessons can we draw, especially for employers, for people in businesses, for people planning to even have their own businesses and have employees? What lessons can they learn in terms of proper management of their company, so that any time when there's such kind of crisis, they don't have to resort to laying off or paying half salaries to their employees?
I feel so sorry about those people who've already lost their jobs, those who don't know how they'll get the next meal on their table, those people who don't know what their children will feed on, what they'll dress, and it's a mess. I really feel sorry for them. For people in business, it's a time we need to focus more on savings. Sometimes it's very hard, even to me personally, saving is such a big challenge. But I think we need to read more, find more knowledge on how to save, because it is from these savings that many people are surviving on. And businesses need to learn the same, that when we invest our monies, we need to have some money aside to make sure that we have a stock to take care of the people who work for us. If anything, these are the only resources we cannot exchange for anything else. The human resource, they have a brain unlike robots. We need to figure out a way to have some money set aside in such hard times. As we had said earlier on, change will always happen. Sometimes waves will blow, things will go bad. We always need to be prepared for such eventualities, and having some money aside will play a very significant role.
All right, Braxidis, do you feel like there are more lessons companies, businesses can learn?
For the employees, the most important lesson would be, what are the services that you're providing? Okay. Are they just the ordinary services that any trained monkey can do, or are you giving a more value add to this? So let's look at being more authentic, improving on our skills, and giving something that the world needs, because that's the only critical item that can still keep you at the jobs. Because you're looking at AI, which is replacing everyone, and even robots work better because they will not have any errors. So if it's any data entry job, the robots will do it for us. So as an individual, the work that you're doing, which value is it adding? And is it relevant in the current sector? So as employees, that's what we should be considering as we move on, as we improve on our skills. And employers should also look at, employers should also be keen to give the employees an opportunity to grow their skills and to grow their knowledge in particular areas. So they should be at the forefront to push employee improvement, employee benefit, so that they can give the employees a conducive environment to at least improve on the skills that they're required to have. And once we have all these things intertwined, all these things going seamlessly, then you will find that it will be very hard for an employee to sack, for an employer to sack an employee, because they actually need that employee so much.
Maybe
right.
just
Amos,
to jump in.
add on that?
Yeah, sure. This is a time where we need to be very careful about mediocrity. It's a time where we need to run away from mediocrity by all means, because there's so much wasted on ineffective ways of doing things. There's so much wasted in the way we run our processes currently. This is a time where excellence has to be at its best. So as an individual, as a company, we need to minimize costs. We need to reduce the amount of money we put to waste. And therefore, I will ask everybody, if you are in school, do whatever you're doing and make sure you're excellent at it. If you're providing a service, make sure your service is the best it can be. Reduce wastages, lower costs, so that we have more resources to use in other sectors.
All right, so even as you're talking about employers, a take-home for employees is that learn to offer not just ordinary services, but extraordinary services. So, even, so that even when the employer might think of firing, you would not top the list of the ones being fired. That's what you're saying, Braxidis?
Yes.
Okay. Now, moving to another aspect, again, still on matters to do with education. As of now, around 1.6 billion children are being deprived of their education. So when it comes to children learning, getting skills, getting better knowledge, do you think that during this time they can continue getting more skills, getting more knowledge that can equip them, even as children or as young adults, to make better choices in life or to learn how to deal with issues and problems? Braxidis?
The challenge we're having now is education in areas where the internet is not there, where people cannot afford a computer, they cannot go online. So it's quite a basic challenge there, being exposed to the kind of education that a Nairobi child can have. As much as we know, there at the rural areas, education is still being transmitted in the normal, traditional ways where a parent teaches a child. But this is just hindering them, this other exposure where they can learn more online. So my take would be that the government needs actually to empower all those rural areas. They started with the electricity program. Yeah. So if they can run the electricity all around, if parents can be able to squeeze a bit of income and just be able to provide this basic necessity, then it will be very important for this child to be exposed to the education that is more palatable at this stage. And may I also point out that if you're a bit older, let's say for the university student, the institution does not give you the education. You look for the education yourself. So you're an exposed person and you can be able to go online. You should be able to learn on your own. As much as the institutions are very important, they've given you access to all the materials they need. They've given you access to the professors. So it's upon you as an individual to go and learn, unlike to expect that you'd get this from the institution.
All right, so remember that we are still continuing the discussions around coronavirus pandemic in terms of the lessons that we are learning, the lessons that we can take home, and the lessons that we'll continue upholding even after this is all over. And of course, my guests in studio are helping us understand more about that. But now, coming to the aspect of the vulnerable persons, this include the elderly persons, the poor in the society, the PWDs, and we know the aspect of even just getting basic food has become a tussle, especially for such persons. Are we doing enough as a society to ensure that the vulnerable persons are being taken care of during this time? And probably if not, what can we learn in terms of ensuring that these persons can be well taken care of in times of problems or even issues?
I think we need to empower more. We need families that are more empowered than have been traditionally. Because look at this. We're not able to move as freely as we would do before. We are not able to access the services of, especially those people in rural areas, we're not able to access the services of experts in these areas. So I expect families to be doing more in ensuring there's cohesiveness, there is true friendship apart from the blood ties and being my wife and my child. We need to empower families more so that a member of the family is able to take care of the other member of the family in such hard times. That will go a long way.
All right, when you say we need to be more empowered as family, is that also adding to the aspect of not being people that we just reliant on probably the government or reliant on well-wishers? When you talk about empowerment, is that what also, is it what you also mean in terms of just not being reliant to people, but being able to do stuff by ourselves?
Most of the time when we talk about the government, people think about the president, the MPs, the people in offices. The truth is the government is you and I.
And we look to them to give us everything.
Indeed. Yeah. So the government will only help in allocation and ensuring that these services go where they're supposed to go, but they will not go in the level of making sure they take effect at the grassroots. So the government is me and you. Mm-hmm. You cannot over-rely on other people. In Kenya, we have a problem of over-reliance. There are things we can take care of by ourselves without really needing the help of a government, a leader, or even experts. Now, we most of the time, the problem we have is that we are careless. We want things done for us. We are lazy. This is a time where we need to work even harder. And not just in the material goods, but even in emotional goods. Because you see, these people that are very susceptible, people who are high in the region of high risk, they're all, for example, we are the people to give them hope. If you don't give them hope, the government will send messages of hope, but if you don't have a television, if you don't have access to social media, it will still not reach you. So it's upon family members not to rely on the government, but to work on the things they can do. Remember, everybody has some level of capacity. Use that which you have within your reach to make sure you help the other person next to you.
Use that which you have within your reach to make sure that you help yourself as well as you help the other person. But Braxidis, do you feel like we're doing enough as a society? Yes, I know Amos has talked about the issue of empowerment and how important it is, not just during this time, but in all times. But in terms of helping these vulnerable persons, we talk about the elderly, the PWDs, people in informal settlements, the poor, people that cannot afford basic necessities. Are we doing enough to ensure that these persons are taken care of during this time? And probably if not, what more can we learn in terms of helping such persons?
I think the most important lesson that we are getting out of this COVID-19 situation is love.
Okay.
How much do you love your neighbor? Would you see someone go hungry? Even without this coronavirus, would you see someone go hungry and not do anything? So it's more of being human, knowing that whatever you have it so that you can share with others. So if we can do that, and while doing that, empower these people we are calling vulnerable, these people we are calling poor, so that they can be able to stand on their own. Because if we empower them and give them, let's say, a source of income, when they are able to generate their own income, then it's a less burden for all of us, because we are sure now they can take care of themselves in the slightest position they may be. And the other thing I must mention, which is actually eating most of us, is the black tax.
Okay.
Where you send a child in Nairobi, and all of you in the village now depend on this child. As a family, we should be able to come together, see these few resources that we have, maybe being generated by that person who's in Nairobi, and then be able to just diversify and ensure every member of our family is empowered to some sense. So that in case there is something like now we have COVID-19, you're not able to travel, you're not able to interact, you're not even able now to visit those people and assist in the way you used to assist. You're confident and you're safe wherever you are, that back there at home, they're able to get their daily bread, they're able to go on with life as usual, as opposed to fully just relying on you for everything.
All right, so what I'm picking from both of you is that empowerment is key and necessary, not just during this time, but even moving forward. We need to look at the aspects of how we can empower our society, especially the young persons. That's what I'm picking from both of you.
Yes, and the challenge we could be having right now is assuming that empowerment is a responsibility of some other person who should be a third party. The truth is, it's a choice we have to make for ourselves. Instead of waiting for somebody to remind you, which they can do, it's a choice we have to make. Empowerment will not come from person B or person C. There are things, like I've said, which you can do on your own. Remind ourselves to do these things. Don't wait for empowerment from some other party.
All right. Now, let's move to other issues. Now, this is in regards to the social issues. Now, from both of you, even as life coaches, let's talk about the persons that are most likely to succumb to depression. We know that it's the time that when people are at home, people, like we mentioned, that some people have lost jobs, some people have to part way with half salary, some people don't even know what life will look like after all this is done. But for those that are likely to succumb to depression, what probably will be your message for such kind of persons? How can they cope? What can they learn? Amos.
For people who are at a high risk of finding themselves in depression, you need, if you have a family and you have access to them, even if they're not there physically, please use your phone more. Talk to people. It's very important. Sometimes we find ourselves, many people find themselves in depression because they imagine their problems are the biggest. Nobody has ever gone through this situation.
Their problem is unique.
Yeah, they have the worst case scenarios. The truth is, the moment you speak to another person, you'll realize that, gosh, I was enjoying life, I was actually doing very well, and somebody else is worse off, and that will help you even ease and be at peace to even handle your own issues. Very important. So talk to people, find information. Number two, and also very important, people who have a high risk of finding themselves in depression and stress, please stop overexposure. It's good to be informed. It's good to know what is happening around you, but don't dwell too much on the internet. Just scrolling through news on COVID-19, reading articles on COVID-19. The more you read these things, the more you get worried, the more you get to fear. Find a good balance between enough and too much, and therefore find a way of just taking in what is important. And for those people who are around such people, then, like I've said, while you empower yourself, make sure you play the role of a brother's keeper. Be there for your neighbor. Make sure that they don't get to these extremes. It will be very bad if we find ourselves that we had something to do. For instance, if this person makes a mistake, just go ahead and forgive them, because the moment you don't forgive them, they would easily have a problem even talking to you. So when conversations are halted, people are not able to talk in the house, then the problem becomes worse. Basics: forgive each other, ask for forgiveness, advise your helper, give the message of hope. The basics that you can do. Avoid overexposure. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yeah, Braxton is coming back to that issue of depression. Just like Amos has mentioned, that you should do away with just scrolling and looking at social media. But that has become a thing. You know, basically more of what people we are doing right now is looking at social media, going to different social media platforms, if it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, here and there. And this is some of the things that make people succumb to depression, because you look at someone else's life and you wonder, why am I probably not working? Or why am I not doing this? Why is this family member of mine sick and this other person looks like they're having a good life? But for such kind of persons who are likely to succumb to depression, what would be your message as a life coach to them?
Our journeys are different.
Okay.
We are individuals, and by the mere fact of being individuals, we are separate. So focus on your own personal journey. What do you want to be? Which skills do you want? What do you enjoy doing? And do what you can do to the fullest. That will give you a satisfaction, and you'll find life quite interesting. Someone might find television quite interesting, but you might not get the same sense from singing. So if singing is your thing, please sing as loud as you can. If dancing is your portion, wear on your dancing shoes and just dance as much as you can. We are all wired differently.
So what you're saying is also that it's a time for people to identify their hobbies and know what they can do best and perfect and learn to do that thing.
If you're in the house, try new recipes.
Okay.
You might just turn out to be the best cook. So just engage yourself.
All right.
And you'll find out some quite interesting facts about yourself.
Okay. Now, coming to the family again, what are some of the lessons that people can learn in terms of valuing family members, valuing relatives, valuing friendships? Because right now, during this pandemic, a lot of countries have given directives in terms of movements. Like even coming down to Kenya, there has been restriction of movement in some parts of the country, in some counties. And one would say, I'd love to go to that my friend's wedding in Mombasa, or I'd love to go to my friend's baby shower probably in Kilifi, but right now I can't. So what are some of the lessons that people can learn in terms of valuing family, valuing relatives, valuing friendships?
We have limited time on earth, and as much as it's limited, there's so much we can do within that time that we have.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't spend enough time with them, you see what social distancing has done and restriction to traveling has done, it has two impacts. Number one, there are those families that have been separated and for a very long time because maybe a husband or a wife can't travel back in, or a child, or can't go out. There are those families where they're now more together because they can't go out. They have to live together. So you get to appreciate that Daddy was doing something good for the family because while he's here, we are not unable to enjoy the lifestyle we were enjoying while he was away in the field working. For those who are away, you realize, for those who are together, like you didn't get to appreciate your wife enough because maybe you've been working out there and you come back home, you feel that they have not contributed. Yeah. When you stay at home, you realize it's not very easy being in the house. Those basic chores that could feel so easy to do, you realize they're not so easy. So what are we saying? That appreciate your spouse, appreciate your child. They have a contribution that they play, and however insignificant it may look in your eyes, it goes a long way in making sure that the family is stable. Everybody in the family is a pillar. They play a role. Now, every opportunity you have, send flowers, send kisses. Every opportunity you have, maximize it, making sure that the family is all you'll run to in case of such disasters.
All right, and just before I move to Braxides, you've said something, Amos, in terms of, yes, this restriction of movement or these lockdowns have rendered some families to be more close to each other. Some have been apart because they can't move from one place to another. But coming to that aspect of the families that are now close to each other, which ultimately means that now they are at home more often, like the husband, the wife, the children are at home more often. How can such families cope, bearing in mind that probably these are the families that probably where the father was not used to being in the house, like from morning to evening? How can they cope?
We need to find a way of managing our expectations. Very important. Yeah. If you're used to your husband bringing you chocolate every evening, it's time to learn to start managing your expectation. And the other very important thing is let us learn to be, you see, what happens when we are so much indoors is our differences get magnified. We get to realize the things we didn't know. Exactly. The assumption is, as a family, we know each other very well. We know you know how your child is, how your husband is. But the truth is, while you're away, there are so many things you've never gotten to learn about your better half, about your children. This is a time when you're indoors, you get now to realize who this person really is. And it can get very, very uncomfortable when you learn the negatives. So it's a time to be, one, in terms of conversations, please be very open, be very honest, attach emotions in the way you speak. I was writing somewhere the other day that it's the time now to be more mellow, to be more forgiving, to appreciate your spouse more, because now you get to realize the value they have in place. Forgive more than you've ever forgiven before. Even before people apologize, just learn to forgive. Otherwise, For those families that were doing badly, if you don't make it a deliberate decision to forgive and make it work, it's even going to be harder because this person is going to be closer to you. They'll aggravate you more. So work on making it work.
All right, so even as we bring this discussion to a close, Braxidis, let me pick your thoughts on the same, especially for the families that are now staying together. Just like I mentioned, it is a time where fathers are not used to being in the home, to being in the house from morning till evening. So how can such people that are living so close like that cope during this time? What kind of lessons can they learn?
The first thing they need to do is to accept that the situation has changed and they are now together in the house.
Okay.
When they know that they're all in that house together, they need to tolerate each other. Find out what is their commonalities, what are the things that they enjoy. They can try out games and just see which game each and every member of the family enjoys and can participate. Try to build on the family bond around it, and they will find the environment more conducive. If there are those people who like singing, who like reading the Bible, who like reading stories, these are the things that you do together as a family and you build the bond. If you like watching movies, all sit together and watch a movie, discuss it, and you'll find the day will not be so long and all the negativity and the issues surrounding it wouldn't be that many, and you can be able to seamlessly solve them.
All right.
And the financial aspect is also the key one that can actually cause wrangles in the family.
Okay.
So each and every member of the family should actually be able to now understand that the financials have been limited a little bit, and they should be able to use whatever the little resource they have carefully, so that they don't drain their coffers.
All right. So thank you very much, lady and gentlemen. I have been speaking to Amos Wangila as well as Braxidis Ongola, who are both life coaches. They couple up with so many other things that they do, but they have just been helping us understand more of the lessons we can learn during this coronavirus time, more of those lessons that we have been learning, and just talking to us about different aspects, different sectors that have been affected, and what you can learn from all of that. But that is how that is where we bring the discussion to a close this morning. My name is Doreen Arange, and from me and on behalf of the entire show, we say thank you so much for watching from my end. Baram, just as you close it up for us.
All right, thank you very much for keeping it. Good morning, Kenya. I'd like to wind up with just one word for you, and this is a quote. The struggle you are in today is developing the strength you need for tomorrow. God bless you. God bless the work of your hands. My name is Ram Aguko.